Hi, and welcome back to A Journey with Nate. I am your podcast host, Neha, and today I am here with my third guest, Abby. How are you feeling?
Hi, yeah, well, I'm just really happy to be here. It's great to see you again, to connect. So, really looking forward to our great conversation. Yeah.
Thanks, Abby. So tell me about your story.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's such a big question, and there's like so many different threads of like kind of my story and kind of how I got to this point in my life. But yeah, I think a big sort of theme throughout my story has really been my journey with my creativity, really, because that's kind of what I feel strongly is like my purpose and kind of what I'm here to do, to sort of like bring my creativity into the world. Um, yeah, and so as a young child, I grew up like just naturally very creative. My mum has videos of me like watching Britney Spears and like copying her dance moves and like singing in the living room and just wanting to be very expressive. Um, but as I'm sure you can relate, like South Asian parents and culture, like this hard work ethic, emphasis on academia and all these things. Like I basically went to school. I never really fitted in school, and I was always drawn to art and crafts and things like that. I loved my school in the end, my secondary school, but it was like more on the academic side. And I think it sort of just shaped me in that way, like towards more academia, basically. And it was so strange because, like, even at GCSE, I was doing like loads of creative subjects, like drama and arts and things like that. But then I think just because of the way the school was, like the teachers that we had, like it actually really killed my love of creativity. Like I actually finished GCSE art being like, oh my God, I don't want to do art anymore because it wasn't taught in a way that allowed me to really express myself in the way I wanted to. So basically ended up going down this very academic route, and like my sis brother and sister were very academic, so I was always like comparing myself to them. So I actually ended up through a series of like taking my A levels and taking a gap year. I I ended up doing physics at Bristol University, and it was actually when I was at Bristol, like living in Bristol, that it opened up this whole world of like vegan food. So I'd be at the uni. I mean, like Bristol's full of so much creativity, so it was just really amazing because I was obviously doing this degree that I was finding so hard, but I managed to obviously make it through and get through it. But while I was there, I was like really into the music scene, so many cool bands to see, so many like the nightlife is amazing. And so I just was able to experience a lot of like creativity, and especially they'd have a couple of cafes or like Cafe Kino in Bristol where I always go, and there'd be all this super yummy vegan food. So alongside my degree, I was also kind of going through this thing of like questioning my diet, and I've been vegetarian for a long time, but like I got really into sort of the plant-based kind of movement like at that time. And then I finished university, and I was like, okay, I know I just want to go traveling. Like I just have it in me. Before life gets serious, I just want to go traveling. So I worked for a year. I did all sorts of jobs. I worked in a call center, and I was like, oh my God, I've just got a degree and I'm working in a call center. But I did that for a bit, but it allowed me to save.
Mhm.
And then I did a bit of tutoring. I was working at Wembley Stadium. I like just literally have like 4 different jobs, just trying to save up enough money. And I did an internship actually over the summer at an insurance firm, and it was I had the whole experience of like doing a 9 to 5, like going into the city, and I was like, okay, this is not for me. So that really ruled out this thing of like, okay, like I know I'm not supposed to go into like into the corporate world, even though obviously everyone from my school, everyone from my degree, like that was the kind of trajectory.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I'm going to go traveling. I'm going to find myself. Like the answers will come. So I had a 6 month trip in South America. So I just got saved up, got on a plane. I was traveling with friends, some uni friends at the beginning, which was fun. Like we did I did a lot of trekking and things like that. But then I had some space where I was on my own, and I actually went to I went spent some time in the Sacred Valley. Actually ended up sitting with some plant medicine with San Pedro, and that was at that time it was just a really beautiful kind of experience for me, where it was actually at that point where I really opened up myself to back to my creativity. So it's been so long since I like had this desire to create, because I've been in my head and doing all the academic stuff, but being away and just having that time to think, like, what do I love doing? It just was like all of a sudden it's almost like this tap just sort of switched on. And then I was just cooking a lot, so I was staying in places, and I was just like basically just like being like, I just want to cook for people, and I want to cook Indian food. And a lot of the people I was staying with had never tried Indian food before, and I'd never really been taught. I just watched my mum, cook stuff, but it was just all kind of like just coming to me somehow. I was like doing it in my own kind of way, but it was received really well, and everyone loved my food. So that's really when the seed was sort of planted. I was like, okay, there's something in this. Like, I love food. I want to be creative. Like, what could I do with like my life? And it was actually at that point, and I actually had it written down in my diary, like, oh my God, like, I've got this idea for this concept for a food product of like ice cream, so random, but with these spices and with this infusion of spices. So I still have my diary where I wrote it down, and then I just didn't do anything with it. But then I carried on traveling. I came home, and then I was like, okay, what can I do? I don't want to get a job. I had no money. But I was like, I'm just going to buy a 30 quid ice cream machine on Amazon and just get experimenting. So, yeah, so that's basically how it kind of all started, with this food product idea I had. And it was a lot of trial and error, because obviously there's making ice cream at home for your family or whatever, but then there's learning how to make like professional gelato ice cream. The two are very different. And also making it plant-based, making it healthy. It was almost like doing something that hadn't been done before. So it was like loads of testing, like 8 months of testing basically. And I was just like, loads of tears. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is ridiculous. But I got some samples together, and I got to the point where I was like quite happy with them. And I had a family tasting session. So I invited my aunt, my like, I think my brother was there, my sister was there, and we just sat down and we had this ice cream tasting. And they were all like, wow, Abby, like, this is really good. Like, I think you're onto something. So I kind of, at that point, had the backing and support of like my family. It was at that point where I think, because they believed in me, even though I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but because they were just like, you're onto something, just keep at it. That gave me the faith to like just go for it. And to be honest, I really, like, when I was traveling, I was really trying to like say my prayers, and like, I was going to these temple sites in around Peru, and I was just honestly just without knowing, but I was like putting these intentions out there of like, okay, please, whatever happens, I just, want this to find my purpose and to just see what happens. And it felt like that had almost created this kind of like momentum energetically for me to really help this kind of move along. Like, looking back now in hindsight. And yeah, and then basically, yeah, it was 8 months of testing, and then it was that summer where my sister, who she's done loads of cool, like, I'm really fortunate in that she was running these really cool events, and they were doing a summer solstice event, and she was like, Abby, why don't you have your ice cream as the dessert for the lunch? And basically, at that point, I've literally only been making like 3 liter samples in my kitchen. But I made like a saffron cardamom like ice cream. And then I took it to the event. And it was at this event that there was actually a chef there called Arthur, who tried the ice cream. And he was like, Abby, this is amazing. Like, you're onto something here. Like, I want to be your mentor. I want to help you get this out there. Oh. So that event was really beautiful. It went really well. And then he was like, okay, I'm doing another event the following week, and I want you to sample your ice cream. Just come. There's going to be loads of chefs. Just come and bring the ice cream and talk about it. And yeah, so I was like, okay, all right, let's just go for it. And so I went. I had to just like stand up and talk about my ice cream. Everyone tried it. And then there was someone there who actually knew the owner of a pharmacy.
Okay.
So pharmacy at that time was like basically the best vegan restaurant in London. And she sent it to her and she was like, there's a new product here that you need to try. So she then forwarded all my details to the owner. And then I got a text from her like the following few days afterwards being like, hey Abby, it's Camilla, the owner of pharmacy. Like, I love the concept. I really want you to come in and sample the ice cream to us. So I literally then the following week, like it was funny because I was actually at Glastonbury Festival because I'd gone from this event, gone straight to Glastonbury, and then she was texting me while I was there, and I was like, oh my god, this is so exciting. So I got back from the festival and then went to the sampling, and it went so well, and they were like, we want it, we love that it's this exciting new concept, and you know, we want to be the first people to like have it. So then I was basically like kind of like that ice cream chef for that period, and it was such a great learning curve for me because I had no idea what I was doing. Like it was really like it just started, like, you know, figuring out invoicing, figuring out like, you know, and at that point luckily I had to get all the right accreditations and food safety stuff and certificates for my kitchen, and it just really like helped me like figure out all the steps I needed to take. And then it was just like it gave me such a great platform because even to this day, because that was actually in 2019, so that was like 5 years ago now, and I still have people to this day being like, I know Moonji, the first time I had it was at pharmacy, and they'd like paired it with desserts and stuff like that. But it was great because it allowed me to test, you know, the recipes, figure out which ones people like. Like the matcha flavor was really popular. That's still a, you know, a favorite that I've got now. And but yeah, it was just a steep learning curve. And they actually then were doing a pop up in New York, and they were like, we can't find any brand like Moonji, like what do we do? And then I had a meeting with Arthur, who was my mentor, and he was like, we just tell them you'll do it. So I just went into a meeting with them and I was like, I think I could do this. Like, and they were like, okay, all right, come with us. So they booked me on a flight to New York, and I and I literally went to New York to make ice cream. I know, and it was like I was in Manhattan in Soho, like, you know, like in this restaurant, like making ice cream. That was like a whole story in itself because there was so much that went wrong. It was like apprentice style, like buying all the ingredients, and you know, and it's not easy, like, you know, making something that's healthy and clean and finding right machinery and all this stuff. But now I just think, well, it's the experience. It was fully to just have that experience. It wasn't necessarily about the money or any of these things, but like I look back at that time now and I think, wow, like that's so cool that happened. Literally 3 months into like launching it, then flying to New York to do that. Yeah. I mean, it was like this momentum that had really built. Like, I think when you manifest, like, I think it's one of those things they say, like, you know, it's one thing manifesting something, but then it's also being able to hold it. And I was 24. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I had a lot of insecurities. I had a lot of self doubt. And basically, like, but I was manifesting all of this stuff. Like, I had Fortnum and Masons then come to me and they wanted me to develop some flavors for them. So I did that. But then there were also issues because the ice cream is so clean, it's so natural. They were struggling for it to work in their, like, you know, in their display freezers because it wasn't like the same consistency as the other flavors and all these things. But you know, it's still great that we can say that we worked with them. Like, my flavors were launched for them and I developed flavors for them. And I literally get an email from the head chef being like, Abby, like, we're having a tasting next week. Can you bring in 5 of your best flavors? And I was like, I had to come up with 5 flavors that week to then go to this tasting. I was like, oh my God, like it was a lot for me. And then on top of that, managing pharmacy. And then, yeah, like, I think really during the pandemic, obviously everything shut, pharmacy shut, and it was like, oh God, like what do I do? I had this momentum building and we were working with them and all this stuff, but then it just was like this really big, kind of like everything just closed. So then it was at that time then that I was like, all right, okay, it's time to rethink what to do. And then that sort of was then essentially kind of to pivot and just be like, okay, well, let's get Moonji into shops.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we developed the packaging and the branding, and that was took about a year. And then I started selling into shops. And then I also was like, let's try festivals. So that's when we started doing festivals, and I did Medicine Festival. And then that's been for like the last 3 years. So that's kind of got me up to this point, really. But like, it's like, I think this is the thing when you start a business, everyone's like, this is the trajectory, you know, and you're on Dragon's Den and they're like year one, year two, whatever. Whereas like for me, I'm kind of just going at this unique rhythm, I think, where it's taken a longer time because I've been like finding myself in the process, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and just being in this sort of experimental phase. And it's been more about, I think, the experiences. And I've been really fortunate that, you know, I've been able to do that, and it's still been in this startup sort of like phase. But really excitingly is that this year it really feels like there's been like this shift of like it in me, like, okay, I'm ready now for that next like stage of growth.
Mm-hmm.
I want this to get out there to more people. So how can we make that happen? So now, really excitingly, decided to go with the factory.
Mm-hmm.
So we were making it. You know, I was managing a chef who was making it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I was making it for a long time. Then I hired someone to start making it for me, like still in my basement. But I did hire a kitchen for a bit, but like pretty much basically been in my basement the whole time, like making ice cream. And then now we've decided to go to the factory. So they've sent the samples, and I'm so happy with them. Mm-hmm. So the next stage really is seeing how we can now get this ice cream to more people now that we've got the production kind of capacity. So that's where I'm at now. Yeah.
That's from like from an idea to conception to just expanding very quickly. Having to learn as you're going is incredibly difficult because there's a lot of times where people spend so much time trying to learn different things before they even come up with an idea. And learning on the job, like that sounds like it was difficult, but it helped.
Yeah, what I've realized is everyone's got their own unique way of like learning, because like a lot of people need to do the research and like build the skills, whereas I'm really into like human design, astrology, and because I've been like learning about myself and how I best kind of operate, I guess. In my human design, it specifically says learn through experimentation, so I have to keep reminding myself of that, and like part of that is failing as well. Mm-hmm. But it's important to almost redefine what failure means, because it's like you failed a lot of times to then figure out what works. So I feel like that's basically essentially been sort of the story up to this point.
Yeah, but that's absolutely beautiful because like people always have this kind of idea that they have to succeed and everything has to be perfect, but there are lots of failures along the way, and it's how you navigate those failures that kind of help you to learn from them. Mm-hmm. And to move forward. Mm-hmm. So obviously Moonji, love the name. What was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so obviously it was the ice cream and the spices and figuring out like that's the product. And then it was a really beautiful, I was just came back from traveling. I was like, okay, what's going to be the name? So I was just sort of like just really sitting with, okay, what could it be? But I was really like, I knew I just wanted to have the moon in there. I think again, I love astrology, and then I love like the idea that the moon is like more feminine. So I was like, I'm doing like business in like a more feminine way. I want there to be kind of ethereal, kind of spiritual kind of aspect to it. So like, let's definitely have the moon, because I thought it was so like quite playful. And then it just came to me one day, like the JI, and I was like, Moonji, like that's cute. And like the idea, obviously, of like, as you know, is that the JI, like in Indian culture, with G at the end, it's like a way of respect. I was like, that's really fun. Mm-hmm. And oh my god, when I was coming up with the logo at the beginning, I literally have drawings of like the moon wearing a little turban, like a little Moonji. Like I was like, okay, I'm really, like, obviously we didn't go with that, but that's hilarious thinking now, like all the ideas I was coming up with. But yeah, I just thought it was cute, and I did just started asking friends and people like, "What do you think of the name?" And everyone really loved it. So just that's how it just stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's been your personal success of Moonji so far?
Oh, like obviously, like I said, it was amazing at the beginning. We worked pharmacy, we worked with Fortnum Masons. I've worked with Planet Organic, like some, some really like around specialty retail. Like a lot of people would consider those like, really big names. So I'm really proud that we've done that, and like those are definitely big achievements. But when I actually tune into like myself, and I'm like, the first thing that really comes to my mind is Medicine Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because like I obviously, I've been on my own journey with spirituality and like being, wanting to find these spaces where I can really feel like I found my community. So obviously, for example, when we met like on retreat, which we'll talk about, but like being around people who are like into this work and into growth and into like, being, wanting to like, do better for the planet and all these things. And medicine to me is just really like really special because I loved festivals before, but the fact that I could be there with Moonji. And again, it was an invitation. I met the guy who runs the kitchen and who decides which stall festival food stalls to have at the festival. Mm-hmm. And I met him at a dinner, and he was like, "Abby, if you try Moonji," and he was like, "We need to get this to medicine." So I was like, "What?" I had heard of Medicine Festival before, and on the radar, but yeah, obviously I didn't know too much about it. And then we had the first year 3 years ago, and it was so beautiful. Like they have so many inspiring speakers there, like Satish Kumar, I don't know if you know him, but he's amazing. And um, I've met him before actually because my sister's done some work with him, but it was just so inspiring to be there. And then it opened up this whole world of music for me too, because the musicians there are incredible. They're all healers. There was like spiritual music that I've never heard before. Mm-hmm. So like I saw Nessie Gomez around the Sacred Glade after like a whole day of selling ice cream, and that was like probably one of the best musical gigs or musical experiences I've ever had in my life. Like it just touched me so deeply. So it's just like, okay, I love that I'm here with Moonji and that it's opened me up to all these different, all this other stuff. And then on top of that is that then every year coming back, it feels like the community just keeps growing. Mm-hmm. It's like every time I do a retreat or I do a course or something, you meet people and then they're all there. Everyone comes back to the festival. So this year, it's my third year. And I felt like every person that means so much to me that I've met along this journey is here, like literally all my closest, and so and obviously now like you're saying that you might want to come next time because it feels like it's just growing, the community is really growing. So I just when I'm there I'm like, it's home, and it's really beautiful because then we've been serving these customers for 3 years, and like we literally get people being like, Abby, like when we think of medicine, we think of Moonji, and we're so excited to come to medicine so we can have your ice cream every day. Mm-hmm. And like it was a lot, it was intense this year, but it was the best weekend of sales. Mm-hmm. And I know it's because I'm at my happiest. Like it's such a reflection of like because I'm there and I'm just so feeling so good and in my heart, it's just like attracts that, So we had like queues the whole weekend. Like I literally was like, we've definitely like overdone it. I've bought way too much ice cream. But then we sold out. We were gonna sell out like by the Sunday. Had to bring more stock. Like okay, but it's really special. And then I met some of my heroes as well, like Zach Bush, Richard Rudd, like they were all there, and I like invited them all for ice cream. They all came and ate ice cream and hung out. So just like really special moments that will really stay with me. Mm-hmm. And so I have that has to be.
We talked a bit about as well before about your trajectory and the kind of natural progression potentially to like supermarkets, but maybe not supermarkets. And yeah, what are your thoughts about where Moonji's potentially going to go?
Yeah, well, so it's so interesting because I think when you're like, okay, I'm gonna find my purpose and like tuning into your heart and this idea comes, it almost comes from like such a pure place and you're really in that heart space. But then it's so easy then to like take advice from people or to get, to like, for other people's opinions and like ways of doing things to kind of influence you. So I've really been on this journey of like, maybe not necessarily taking the right advice or maybe like working with people who've like, put so much emphasis on like, you used to think year 3, year 5, year da 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 da, da, and then me losing that essence of why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Because it really has like had its peaks and troughs and like moments where I'm like, okay, I want to give this up, but it's because I just was too in my head and I was just so focused on the wrong things. But yeah, when I started it, I had no expectations. I just went for it. But then I was like, okay, I need to put a business plan together. Like, what's the plan? And I think if you're doing any sort of food business, everyone sort of feels like the end goal is getting to all the big multiple like sort of supermarkets, and that was what I thought. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it's not that that hasn't changed. Like now, I'm like, yeah, I want to be there because I think it's about making good quality products accessible, as we said, to everyone. But I'm just not necessarily in such a rush. And I think what you realize is that when you've got a business, you think, okay, this is the only way I'm going to sell it. But then you realize there's so many different avenues. And I pitched to an airline actually this year and they like loved it. So I mean I'm not gonna can't say anything more on that because nothing's come of that as in like with it they're waiting for the factory samples and then there's such a long process to even figure out, to the stages of it actually launching. But I'm like, the travel industry, like I love travel, like why not get it on the airlines or, the cruise ships or so and then what else? There's like, even like getting into restaurants and cafes. And I think it's nice for people to have an experience of the product, like being at a restaurant or being, like in a cafe because it's more of an experience. And I think I want people to have that as an experience of Moonji first. And then for them to be such a demand that then we get into the supermarket. So that's kind of what my thought process is. But then at the same time, like I would consider Moonji to sort of be like our direct competitor is sort of Bouja Bouja. So I don't know if, yeah. And they're not in any major supermarkets. They're in Waitrose and then like they're just in all the organic, all the natural whole like yeah. So I mean even if that's what we do, then that, maybe we just do that and we avoid the supermarket.
Yeah. And I think obviously you started when you said at the beginning about your family and being Southeast Asian, and how has it been like for you, like for your family to see this, for you to be so creative, but also like generationally, like to mix spices with ice cream is so incredibly innovative. And when I heard the name Moonji, and I saw it. The first time I saw it was when Arlene had posted about the retreat and who was coming, and she put down Moonji and she put down Abby, and I remember thinking in my head, Moonji, oh my god, that's such a great name because Moon and then G with the with the respect, and I was like, because I obviously when I spoke to my elders, I added G on, and I remember thinking like, I am so intrigued to meet you, and that was so wonderful. So I feel like how massive has it been that it's such a great influence, like from your family and generationally. Like, how does that feel?
There definitely is something there for sure. Like I think the first thing that comes to mind is like my grandma, like my nana, who yeah, when my mum first told her about the business, like she's older and she doesn't quite like. I tell her, I update her, but she always asks me like how's your business doing, and I always bring ice cream over to her, and she really loves it, and it's better because it's like healthier, like less refined sugar, and it's she loves ice cream, so it's like a healthier treat for her. But she's really proud of me because she had to sacrifice a lot, like when my grandparents came over to the UK. Obviously, it was like survival, like having to like put food on the table and like look after all the children. But she had her own seamstress. She was a tailor, so she like made loads of beautiful Indian clothes, and that would be what, you know, what brought in a lot of money for the family. But it was almost like that pressure of like having to like really just to do that out of like, you know, more survival kind of, you know. Um, and yeah, but it's interesting like how, yeah, there's been this thread through my family of like lots of creativity. Like, so with my grandma, it was about like bringing like beautiful clothes, you know, making beautiful clothes. But I see that with my mum as well. She was really gifted growing up. Like, she was naturally like could make clothes and crochet, and just had so much of this creativity. And I think just from Indian culture, like the South Asian, like it's so rich. I think we just have all of this around us. And I think um, she just took it for granted, because sometimes when something comes so easily to you, you just do overlook it. So she did that academic thing. She went to uni, which is amazing because she was the first person in her family to go to university. She became an accountant. And you know, it's interesting that it's like now, because of what I'm doing, because I'm like, no, I'm not doing the corporate thing, I'm gonna, you know, it's making her question, oh, actually, there's more to my life and more to my purpose than being an accountant. And so she's now, you know, like, it's nice how she inspired me, but now I'm inspiring her, and she's also helping me massively on the business. Like, we have really been doing this together, because I think she always wanted to start business, really. And then when I started it, she was, you know, really wanting to support. So my mum's been like a real, like, I mean, that's a whole different conversation in itself, because it's taught us a lot about our relationship and the dynamics there. And yeah, that's been a whole thing of me actually listening to my intuition, rather than, you know, her feeling like she needs to protect me, and like come from the mothering of like, are you making the right thing, right decision. um so we've like been working through that, actually, which has been like, you know, really like not easy, but also really beautiful. um but yeah, I guess coming back to your question, like it's so interesting, because I think every generation we have this new layer of understanding for ourselves and who we are, and understanding our ancestry and all the sacrifices they had to make for us to be where we are now. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this for like all the women in my family who couldn't choose their creative dream. Basically, I'm like, okay, I'm here to prove that you can do what you love, and follow your heart, and it will be successful. So that's something that definitely fuels me. Yeah.
Genuinely, I'm like, be right back. Right, right. No, I like obviously, I like, wow. Yeah, I really feel that. I can definitely see it generationally from family, and I relate so much on academia, and then
Yeah.
being able to start finding yourself away from academia, and what resonates with you. And that can always be difficult for family, especially Asian families who measure success as on a monetary scale.
Totally.
So that's been a new curve for me, a new curve for my father. So and he's still working out what's happening, and why I've gone from like the legal world to a podcast. But it makes me, just listening to everyone's stories and how inspiring they are to me, it's just such a beautiful thing. That leads me on to my next question of who inspires you.
Oh, again, like, what a question. Because I think, yeah, I'm naturally, I think I'm someone who, yeah, is inquisitive and like loves learning about like people's stories and things like that. But I think the thing that my biggest journey with everything has been like my spiritual journey and my growth with that, and then also how business sort of kind of weaves into that. But when you ask me that question, the first person that comes to mind, I mean, there's loads of people that inspire me. But yeah, Dr. Joe Dispenza is like definitely up there for me. And I think because I feel that, you know, I started out reading his books, and that was obviously learning about kind of all these ideas about the power of intention and meditation, but like in a scientific way. Because it's interesting how, I guess, with my physics degree, I thought, okay, that's it, like I'm kind of done, no more kind of sciencey stuff. But you know, quantum mechanics now is like such a big topic, and it comes into so many different like the conversations around spirituality now, and how these two, like, they're bridging the gap. And I you know, I guess I'm grateful that like I've understood, like I've gone through the maths of, like, you know, all of this. Like in my lectures, I might have been like struggled my way through it, but I still, like, you know, it's you know, maths in itself, I guess, is a language of the universe. And um yeah, and so reading those books were amazing for me, because he talks about activating the pineal gland, and how like that in itself is like, you know, the chemical process of these kind of spiritual experiences. So I am inspired by it, because I really feel like he teaches people how to like live in their optimum way, how to deeply heal, and all these things. And I've really been on my own healing process, and I've noticed how I have hindered myself in my business, like the growth of my business. Like I've met my like insecurities, I've met my inner critic, and I've met my limiting beliefs. And I really believe that your business is a reflection of that. So there are so many business people that do his work and are like mega successful. So I'm really lucky and fortunate that I went to his retreat in Mexico, which I can talk about, last December, so almost a year ago now. And which is crazy. And you know, even on the taxi on the way there, I got into the taxi and I was just sat with this guy who's like multi-million-pound like restaurant owner in the US, and like was on the same plane as Dr. Joe on the way there. And it was just like it just expanded me in a really cool way of being like, these people are really spiritual, into the spiritual work, but like really doing cool stuff. And you know, that's what we need. We need more people, successful people, who are like, you know, doing good for the planet. I think that's how we're going to create change. So yeah, it was. And we go into different groups, and anyway, Dr. Joe was just like so inspiring the whole time, because he talks about all these success stories, people self-healing really on these retreats, like disabled people like walking again, cancer tumors disappearing, all through the power of the mind and intention. And the energy in the room is so high, because you've got 2,000 people connecting to their heart. Like it's like yeah. So it was by far one of the most incredible experiences. And obviously it's been a series of all the other things I've done to get me to that point where I was in the right place for that to really have an effect. But yeah, just here. And he manages all these businesses. He has his foundation, he like runs these retreats, he's got his books, you know, like it's amazing. Yeah. But so many amazing, inspiring people out there. I could probably talk about so many other people, but yeah, he's the first person that comes to mind, so I got to talk about that.
I actually have his book on my bookshelf over there. I've got Becoming Supernatural, and now I have to read it, because it's one that I've had for years and never looked at, which is so strange.
This is maybe a sign.
Yeah. So we've spoken about before that you went to Mexico for a period of time. How did that journey look like to you?
Yeah, so it's interesting, because obviously now I said this year, things now feel like we're in that exciting growth stage with Moonji. But I was really set on this happening last year. So it's also interesting to know that like things go at their own timeline. You really have to trust like the right time for things to, you know, things to start moving. And I really realized, like, if I'd committed to, say, the factory last year, I wouldn't have had this time in Mexico. And obviously that opened up so much for me. So again, you have to really trust the process. But last year I had it was tiring. Like we did loads of festivals over summer, still heavily involved in making it, selling it, like getting it to this wholesaler, packing, sticking, like it was, and still being like, oh my God, is it even worth all of this energy? Like I left sort of finished summer like pretty burnt out. And you know, my mom had actually done a couple of the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreats and had come back, and I really felt that shift after she'd come back. She was like raving on about how amazing they were. And she was like, Abby, I really feel like you've got to experience this. I think it'll be really good for you. And so we looked at the dates, and the next one was going to be in Mexico. And I'd always wanted to go. And to be honest, I was like, I just want to get to Mexico. I'm like, yeah. And it was like this, whoa, okay, because it's not cheap, but it's like for the value you get for that week, like you can't put a price on it. So totally, I feel like if you have the opportunity to go, I really heavily recommend. But I decided, okay, I'm gonna go, and then I'm gonna have a week after to like do a bit of traveling. And I had some friends that had been to Tulum, because a lot of people from Medicine Festival spend a lot of time in Mexico, and a lot of the musicians live there as well. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Tulum. I'm gonna have like I think 10 days there. And so I booked the mistake was that I booked a return flight, because I just should have known. I was gonna love it so much. That's my problem when I go traveling. I love just traveling forever. But yeah, so I got on the plane, went to the Dr. Joe retreat, which was, like I said, just totally life changing. Like you don't even really understand what's happening at that, but he explains how your biology changes, like your as you raise your frequency, like they've shown how your DNA like actually physically changes. They've done the studies. Because the whole thing with Dr. Josie, he had a back injury, and he actually self-healed himself, and then he teaches everyone basically the method of, he's always refining it through his meditations and things. But I came out of that experience being like, I'm a different person. Like I'm in this kind of biological kind of upgrade. But what he says is that when you go back into your old environment, it stimulates the old sub patterns again. So because I then had the time of being in Mexico, because you're in a new environment, I was able to like really cement in this new version of myself. Okay. So that's why I also recommend, I'm like, if you do his retreats, it's important to have like some time afterwards to really integrate the new you. Okay. But then obviously I went to Mexico, and I just like loved it so much that I ended up staying 3 months. And I'm lucky because I hadn't committed to the factory, because I had some stock with the wholesaler, but it was just ticking along, and I was doing work while I was out there, but like I have no real like, you need to come back, no reason to.
No corporate job sitting there.
Yeah.
They have like an allocation of holidays and can only do for like a couple.
Yeah, and a lot of people, do you know what? And I had a business mentor, and I was like to him, I was like, what do I do? And he was like, Abby, like you'll just stay, like things are flowing there. And I was like, honestly, I said like, thank you for encouraging me, because I was feeling so guilty. I was like, okay, I'll come back by New Year's, but then I changed my flight 3 times. But what ended up happening was that because of Medicine Festival, and the connections I'd made there were a lot of people from that festival that were actually in Tulum, because it has a big conscious community. So there's something about the energy of the place, like the vibration. It feels like you're at a festival the whole time. It's like it's beautiful, really. And I got there, I loved it, and I just made some really close friends, like my friend Livy, who has a clothing brand. She actually does all the festivals around the UK, so we've been in the same spaces, but we hadn't actually met. I think she'd bought Moonji before, but and she'd seen me, but we hadn't actually properly spoken. So then when I met her there, we just we became like sisters, and she really like took care of me, and we had so much fun. And then there were loads of amazing creatives. Like it really is a space where you can just go and you can just like be creative, and any idea you have, everyone's like, oh my God, yeah, do it, try it. There's this real feeling of like you could just do anything you want to do. So a lot of people working remotely and a lot of business people kind of coming there just to like, yeah, work there for a bit or whatever. And I actually ended up kind of connecting with some amazing chefs out there, and one who's now a really good friend of mine, and we ended up just basically just exploring bringing Moonji to Tulum basically. So and I put it out there and I was like, let's see what happens. But then we found the kitchen, we found the machine, and we found everything. So again, I ended up just basically being like, okay, well, I'm really like, this is actually helping my business because I'm just um I'm just experimenting really. And actually, it did me so good because I was at that point where I was burnt out. I was like, why am I even doing this? And it was just like, it just brought the joy back for me. I was like, okay, let's be creative again. Like I did this beautiful sensorial concert experience where we came up with a Moonji ice cream for this like sound, like sense journey. So there's a beautiful brand called Inara, and they have these beautiful scents which are connected to the different frequencies, and they've got different like beautiful kind of like sound journey, like kind of music to accompany the scents. And so we came up with an ice cream pairing for that, and then had it at this event. And I was in a beautiful location like in Tulum, this gorgeous space called Wild by Hands, and it's just so just gorgeous. And then we had the ice cream. We did the event, and I was like, something like this would never happen in the UK. It would never happen in London. So to be able to just be there and to just like collaborate with different creatives, like I always say to anyone who's a musician or a creative, or just go there and just connect with people and just like just have that experience, because yeah, I noticed how it came back, and I just felt so much more re-inspired and all these things. So
you know about the five senses, but you never really think about pairing them together. You think about pairing wine with a milk, but you never think about pairing ice cream with a sound.
Yeah.
Which is just mind blowing. But being in that space and being with other creatives and just like flowing, like bouncing off each other and creating something just new and beautiful is wow, like just no words. That obviously leads me as well to the fact that we met at a retreat, and we one of the things at the retreat was a sensual supper, and I think I was trying to work out obviously what a sensual supper was before it happened. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what the sensual supper was, and then we can move on to you chefing at retreats as well, because that's
totally
so sensual suppers.
Yeah. So it's one of those things, I guess like being there, I was just open to like new experiences. I think in Tulum everyone is so like just kind of like really, there's this kind of freedom, because I feel like in the UK and in like, we're quite like reserved, and we're still kind of understanding what these things even mean. And whereas everyone just has this beautiful interlude of this freedom of just expression and connection to themselves. And I think especially as women, we are innately like sensual, right? And then people associate that with being sexual, but actually what it means is it just really is like being in the moment and being in the senses. And I think that actually I realized, I was like, wow, I think I do that quite naturally. Like we as women, we kind of just have this innate desire, or like kind of relationship to being kind of connected to our senses in that way. But I think this sensual supper sort of thing was like, it's becoming, I think now people are like kind of, it's something that's getting a bit more popular, and people are like experimenting with it. But it was actually some friends, they have a beautiful business called Awaken Table. They had a stall at Medicine. They actually kind of came up with initially with this concept of like doing sensual suppers. So essentially what it is that it's like you are blindfolded for some of it, and then you kind of are able to really just tap into like the food experience, like without the sight. And I know that there are some other people who are doing similar concepts, but that's the main kind of theme of it. So I had some really talented chef friends who were doing essential suppers in Tulum, and they invited me to be part of it and to help in the kitchen and then also bring Moonji. And so essentially what it was that, yeah, everyone, all the guests get invited in and they're blindfolded, which is what we did for the retreat. And then everyone sits down and then there's music and poetry and just kind of everything for the senses, but just really like tapping into like obviously just without the sight. And it's amazing when you remove the sight, then how much you're able to experience, like just really dropping in and experiencing food, like, you know, the like the tastes and all these things. So at the beginning, I was a bit like, oh my God, like, what is this? Like, what's going on? But then the more you kind of just relax and lean into it, like, oh my God, I'm like, this is heaven, heaven. So I got really, like, we did a second one, and I got really into it. I loved it. And actually, it was just, again, it's something like I never would really be into this usually, but this is just really kind of like, you know, I'm loving experiencing this. And then obviously I didn't really think about ice cream in that way, but it's so activating for the senses because you've got the temperature, you've got the different flavor profiles. It is quite like something that can work so well in that setting. And so it worked really well as the dessert. And like everyone, yeah, obviously we did a ceremonial cacao ice cream which we served, and everyone was invited to kind of like, you know, to just, yeah, it was really beautiful. So obviously had that experience, but then when Arlene asked me to be the chef for her retreat, she was like, Abby, I'm planning a sensual supper for the Saturday dinner, and I was just like, that's so crazy because I did them in Tulum.
Okay, yeah, I thought you thought of that, but no,
it was not my idea. Yeah. It was Arlene's, and so I thought, wow, that's just so beautiful. How there's always a reason for things. Because like she didn't realize I was, you know, she'd already thought about it, and I thought like, am I going to be able to pull it off in the same way that it was done? But you know, we just had fun with it, you know, and again, it was like with the feathers, it's really playful, and again, it's just like when you girls were blindfolded and we were coming around and we were like, at first you just were like, oh my goodness, but when you just relax into it, like it's just so playful, and it's actually just really it's really beautiful. Like it was beautiful to just do that, and like the more you lean into these things, the more you're like, oh, it's just about the feeling good and the playfulness. So
it was really good fun. It was my first experience of it as well, and I didn't really know what to expect. But I was like, this is good. And like obviously I bring a level of comedy, so I think I was just generally just making it. Me and Hibbs were just making a competition to like identify things first. But I think the main thing for me, obviously, when for you creating the food and like for me coming into that space, and I really felt like when I was eating your food, I really felt like I was nourished, like my body was nourished, my mind was nourished, and I said as well to you that my soul was nourished. And but it's such a beautiful thing as well, because don't get me wrong, I like my husband nourishes me on a day-to-day basis, and but this was different. Like it felt like a sister, like a mother, and it was very like loving, and it was really beautiful to be on the other side of it. What's your inspiration behind street chefing?
yeah, so I think it was interesting because when I came back from Mexico, I was a bit like, okay, I am committed to Moonji and I do want to do it, but I'm realizing I was just putting all my happiness and all the pressure for me to like, Moonji has to fulfill all my like happiness kind of thing and all my joy. It has to come from this business doing well. And I had this realization of like, wow, but like look at Mexico, look at the beautiful time I had, and I think I need to actually start enjoying my whole life in its fullest spectrum. And take the pressure off Moonji like growing and it being successful. So I decided this year, I was like, Moonji is going to be my, you know, my like priority, of course, but I want to open myself up to like new experiences. And again, I just was like, okay, like this is what I want to do. So I even like researched and explored doing different things. Like people say, oh, you've got a really relaxing voice. So I was like applying for voiceover jobs. I didn't hear back from any of them. But I was like, I want to just, figure out doing a few things on the side. Yeah, and so then Arlene, when she wanted to do this retreat, so when I'd come up to Scotland, and I'd always like I love cooking in Sarah's kitchen, and so I'd be doing a lot of the cooking, and Arlene just loved my food, and she knew I'd never done retreat chefing before, but she was like, Abby, I just want you to be the chef for this retreat, and I was like, oh my god, this is so much pressure. Am I going to be able to do it? But I was like, there has to be a reason why she's asked me. Like, just trust yourself, just say yes, and you'll figure it out. So it all worked out so well because obviously it was my first time in that kitchen. But because I had Vary as my sous chef, that's literally that she taught me so much. So I'm so grateful to her because that's really what made the experience like so doable. Um, yeah, I know we've spoken about this before. Like, I think for me with Moonji, obviously I'm doing everything and I love business, but I'm realizing like I'm like the creative director is like who I want to be like in like the long term, like just doing the creative direction. And I think it was beautiful because I was like, well, I've got all these ideas for food. Like, let's just put a whole menu together with all my favorite foods and all the ideas. And so, like, I love making things like really delicious, but really healthy and really nourishing, and showing that you can eat really healthy, but it can be like, it can taste just as good as your most, like, all your favorite foods. So, that was really like, I want to just go all out with the menu like that, and obviously like just kind of creating all the dishes that using all the spices and things that I love to use. So there is the Ayurveda thread of the spices, and I think the winter one that we just did this weekend, I was able to do more of that because it felt like it was more on theme with the winter, people needing a bit more like kind of like warming spices and things like that. But I love just kind of, just like creating like, I think with plant-based especially, you can be really creative because it's like coming up with new ideas, new ways of cooking sort of traditional stuff, but doing it with healthier ingredients or like whatever. So yeah, so it was just so fun. Steep learning curve, tiring as well, but just like hearing your feedback was just honestly, it gave me so much confidence for my and self-belief for my cooking because again, I've always had this question like, am I supposed to be in food? I know that obviously I'm following my heart, but you always have that questioning thing of like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And I think it was just this confirmation of like, you are supposed to be in food, like this is what you come here to like really kind of bring your creative gifts through, just trust that. And yeah, and especially with being around with Moonji, I've been around so many amazing chefs that like I think I've always had this imposter syndrome. Like, I've never trained to be a chef, like I don't have enough experience in the kitchen. But even in this year I've built up, that's the experience, right? And I've realized it's the love that people feel, and because I'm just like I'm pouring my heart into this, I think that's what then end up people that end up feeling. So I just got to remember, I have to like it's remembering that.
And recipes as well, and like cooking. The reason I find cooking so hard, I find we spoke about this, that I find baking very like easier for me because I can look at a recipe, I can mix it together, I can put it in for a set time. Whereas when I watch like Jordan cook, or if I watch other people cook, they intuitively know when things are done or what to add. And if you ask them for a recipe, like you don't have a recipe because it's just something that you kind of feel into. So
yeah, well, I think this is it. So much of it is confidence, and then it's like because like I've always said like if I was to do a cookbook, I've said this before, it would be to teach people how to get into that intuitive kind of flow in the kitchen. So I think I'm figuring out like what is it that I'm doing, and then a big part of it is that belief in yourself, and I think realizing like getting rid of the perfectionist thing, because we always have this thing of, oh, are people going to like it? So the people pleasing, like, I need everyone to like it.
Yeah.
And then the perfectionist comes in of like, God, like, am I doing this right? But then as soon as you just like let go of that, I'm just like, just gonna just trust that this is gonna come out well, and then trusting yourself when you try it, like, I think this tastes good or whatever. And then I think because I had such good feedback from the last one, this time I really noticed on this last retreat, like, wow, like, I'm trusting myself, like, I have confidence that this is a good dish, kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not a good bake. I'm not an amazing baker at all. Like, I do the overnight oats and stuff like that, which I love, but I find sometimes it's a bit too technical for me, actually, like, too much concentration to be like following each step. Whereas like Indian cooking, because so much of it's like just like, every Indian family has their own recipe or their own recreation, and it all tastes slightly different, because it's like just throwing in,
Yeah.
you can't go too wrong. You just gotta like just be playful with it. So that's definitely my favorite sort of style of cooking.
Yeah. That's one of the things that as I grew older, I really regretted with my grandmother, that I didn't, like, when you're younger, food was just kind of, rather than being something that I really paid attention to, and the cooking process, etc. Like, I would be too busy watching TV or doing something else, that I wasn't actually enjoying watching my gran cook and learning from her. And as I grow older now, I mean, my husband always tells me he's married the one Indian girl who can't cook Indian food. But the thing is like, I really do regret, and now I have to work out connections of, obviously, to none of my grandparents unfortunately are with us just now, but have to work connections through family members, that hopefully I can pull down some of their recipes and learn them. And I really miss my grand's food. And if anyone asks me about Indian food, I go and eat Indian food, but there's very few restaurants I will go and eat Indian food from, especially vegetarian Indian food, because my gran used to make, obviously, the best vegetarian food ever, as did all of our grands. But
is it ever going to taste that good?
Yeah, it's definitely not. So and then obviously as well, food invokes memories and emotions, and yeah, it's really wonderful. But I've just never got into that space, so it was great to enjoy all the food you were making, and then yeah, it was a really nice connection back to roots as well, which was lovely. I'm really sad that you don't live in Scotland, but we're all working on relocating you up here.
There's enough of. I feel like I've got enough of you. It's been like, can you all cook for me? I should just move up here and be a chef. But yeah, I get that I'm doing it in my own way. Like, I really get that it's like, I want to make things cleaner and healthier, and like, like Indian burfi, like the sweets, like even that, like I'm going to come up with a recipe, and me and my mum have been experimenting, where you melt down Moonji ice cream, and then you just add in some of the milk powder, and it kind of turns into this burfi. And I'm like, wow, this actually tastes way healthier.
Yeah.
And it's obviously like got way cleaner ingredients and all these things. So it's like, I get that I'm not doing the traditional thing. And I'm the same. Like, I also say, like, there's so much from my grandma that I still need to like write down and record. And she's getting older and she doesn't do much cooking anymore, but like both me and my sister have said that we really want to like honor, like, so that we can pass it down and stuff like that. But yeah, so I feel the same, that and it's important to do our best to like retain and hold on to these things, because it's
miss it when it's not there. So, but also, I mean, being South Asian as well, like, we have such a big problem with diabetes, because so many of our sweets are just pure sugar.
Oh my god.
So not only have you been innovative with your concept of Moonji, you are creating like better ingredients, cleaner ingredients for Indians as well, who are they can make a different change that tastes like great, and they're not having that as much refined sugar in it.
That's such a big topic, because you're right, they're the real problem. Like, even in my family as well. And actually, it's something I'm really conscious of now, because I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I have to, it's health is like number one thing, right? And if we think we want to eat like our ancestors, but then it's like the quality is just so different now. Like even wheat, like it's GM or it's mass produced, and it's like, a lot of people are having gut issues now and problems with digestion, and it is like Indian food can be so healthy and so good for you. But yeah, it's like it's just that we think with like a lot of the traditional stuff, like we can just, still make it and eat the same, but it's like adapting to kind of the environment that we're living in now, the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because like in Punjab, like we'd be more active if we eating like all the wheat in the, it would be different. Whereas like now, I know me personally, I can't eat like that heavily, or I need to adapt it to like my own kind of lifestyle, really, which is different here, obviously. And then it's like maybe having seasonal stuff as well, like eating like according to what's being grown in the UK, with a mix of like obviously like our cultural food. So yeah, it's balance, it's figuring it out. But there's so many healthy ways to make Indian food, definitely.
Yeah, which the thing is as you talk about seasonally as well, you've drawn quite well on the with Ayurveda and spices, and then obviously seasonally there's Ayurveda and dosha. So
Yeah.
like and eating seasonally the way that you should be eating. So yeah, no, that's that's a completely massive topic, but because Ayurveda is a way of life, as well as like spices and things.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Ayurveda it's a whole kind of like holistic healing sort of system, that has been around for thousands of years. It's like 5,000 years old, and it was the traditional way of actually how medicine was kind of practiced in India. Until the British came and colonized India, and then it had to actually go underground to survive. And obviously, then the Western kind of British, they came in with the medical traditional medical system, and that was implemented. And then when they left, it actually had this revival. And it's so interesting how it's also kind of now coming to the West, and a lot more people are realizing that we're going back to these ancient practices, this ancient wisdom, like Indian ancient wisdom, like has everything, I think, and so much has been inspired from it. And I think this is the thing, it's so complex. I'm by no means an expert. I've just taken inspiration from it, and it just feels innately like this feels right. My sister's had a whole lot of health complications from it recently, and it's helped her in so many ways, like going back to, because it's all about how to tend to this digestion. And in Ayurveda, they talk about the Agni, which is like the digestive fire, which now we're linking to the microbiome in the gut, and how like Western medicine is now catching up. But the spices are like a big part of it, because they talk about how spices are great for aiding digestion, and you can have different combinations of spices that are different for different doshas. But I just thought it'd be really fun to have the spices in the ice cream, because traditionally in Ayurveda they actually say cold foods are bad for you. Okay. And I was at a trade show, and someone was trying to be like, yeah, but you're not supposed to have cold foods in Ayurveda. But I just said, you know what? We're living in the modern day. Yeah. Like we have to adapt to the modern day. They didn't have ice cream 5,000 years ago because they didn't have the technology or the right equipment to make it. But we love ice cream now, and it's a joy to eat ice cream. Yeah. So it's not like, so I just thought, but we can still do these things, but we can make it easier to digest, and we can make it better for you, right? So it's actually, people ask about the Ayurvedic part of Moonji, and I say, well, in the factory process, that even at factory, and what I love is that, normally they have the essence or the flavoring, but we actually put the whole spices into the mixing. So that goes in, and then they sieve it, and then they churn it. And that's how I've been making it, and how I've like been doing it in the kitchen. So it comes from the flavor, but then also it has the anti-inflammatory. Cinnamon reduces blood sugar. Like, you know, so it's like you can add spices to everything. So that's kind of where this is where, like, actually I love talking about this part of Moonji, because I really feel like this is what really makes us unique. And you know, I get messages from customers who say, Abby, like, I struggle with IBS and your ice cream seems to be the only ice cream that doesn't trigger me. So I'm like, okay, this does actually work.
Yeah.
I'm not just like talking about it and like saying, trust me, guys, like people are actually saying that this actually works. So that's what I'm like, okay, this is what's kind of fueling me to like continue.
Yeah, that interesting that you talk about. Like, I remember my gran used to soak badam, we call it, almonds in water every night, and then make us eat like 5 in the morning. Before we went to school, and she would peel them, and I would always be like, "Why am I eating a peeled?" And she was like, "It's for your brain. Like, don't ask questions." But then I learned afterwards there's a Glasgow doctor, Dr. Poonam Christian. She did a post about it, and she was like, actually, the things that our grandparents used to tell us about and they didn't really tell us why was because apparently your gut, I think, can't actually digest the skins very well. Which I didn't know. So I was like, but I think they innately just knew it in their wisdom. But if you asked them a question, they were like, don't know.
Yeah, it's just been passed down like through the generations. But it's now, I think, the science, people are like catching up because Western science is coming in and saying this is why you do it. Like even soaking your lentils, soaking your overnight oats, like we're just so like we just want the quick and easy thing here. Whereas I think ayurveda is all about, like, because I always think about this when I'm cooking Indian food, like time is such an important ingredient because it's allowing the spices to infuse and then soaking things overnight, and just how like slowing down can then obviously help with the digestion and all these things. So yeah,
which is the absolute opposite of like life, especially in Western culture. Like we're so set fast, we need things done really quickly.
The importance of slowing down, and I think that's it. It's like we don't have the time to cook and all these things, but actually when you get into the chefing process and being into food, you're like, wow, actually it's like these processes that, you know, it's so beautiful to be a part of the process to get to the end.
Creatively, what is an outlet, or what do you enjoy doing?
Yeah, so obviously Moonji is like my main, you know, but I realize actually I'm trying to like put all my creative into Moonji, but you know, you also need to just like get the business up and running, and you know, the coming up with the flavors is just one part. So that's why the retreat chefing has been so great, because it's opened up my creativity to being like, oh, I'm going to plan menus and things like that. But actually, you know, one thing I love doing, and which I've definitely noticed since Mexico has sort of kind of come back, is my love of poetry and sort of spoken word. And I had such a kind of block around this because so much of it is like expression, right? It's like being really vulnerable and being like actually expressing what's there for you. And that's why I had so much fear around this before. But I used to love singing and I used to love writing songs when I was younger. It was just something I just did and I didn't really think about. And then since the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, actually, it was really there again. I don't know what happened. It was like voice activation just open. Something just, it was like, I think it was like removing the layers, you know, of like, okay, who am I? And then just kind of finding this sense of like acceptance with me, of being me, and being like, wow, okay, I've got this newfound acceptance of myself, and this is how I want to express myself. And I have like just this weird sense of like, I'm gonna just express, and it's not about what other people think. And that was the thing. I had this whole fear of judgment, fear of what people are gonna think. And when I really am true and want to just express what's really there for me on my heart, because I'm a Pisces, like emotional, sensitive, like there's a lot there. When I'm in flow with my poetry, I like love it and I just want to do it. And I actually started a little poetry page, which was so interesting because when I announced I was going to do it, I noticed it was like basically all my kind of, you know, friends in the more conscious spiritual scene that started following. I think everyone else was a bit like, whoa, that's a bit too vulnerable and scary for me to follow. So I was like, I'm going deep, guys. So you can brace yourself. Yeah, and I just called it like how my heart flows. And what I've realized is that it's so important to have your job and your thing, but it's so important to have other outlets of expression, whether that's dance or singing or whatever. And again, I've been like, no pressure, no, not for anyone else, like literally just for me. I just need to express, I need to just express myself. Um, so when I feel inspired, I just basically just, yeah, I'll just write a poem and I'll read it out or I'll post it. And it's been really beautiful, actually. Like on the retreat, there was a couple, I think, Abby, who was the singer at the retreat, she said that she read something and I wrote, and she really needed to hear that in that moment. And that was like, that meant so much to me. I was like, wow, like I just knowing that she read it and that helped her, inspire her in some way, it was amazing. And two of the girls I mentioned, Michaela and Emma, on the retreat last weekend, they love poetry and they know I love poetry, and they wrote me a poem about my cooking, and like that was like, I got emotional because that really meant so much. I think it's like these little things in life, right? When people do it, these, or when you touch someone and then they feel inspired, and then they, to receive that back. I'm like, that's what this is about. Like, this is really, like,
Yeah,
so beautiful.
It's wonderful that you talked about obviously having the creative with Moonji, and then the creative outlet, and then it's and inspiring people through that, because I feel like it's like, okay, my work job isn't it's creative in a different way. And then I have the podcast, which is my kind of creative, wanting to inspire people, and just feeling like that would be so fulfilling, like if that helped someone else. And then the singing and the poems, the singing part is, I never realized until voice activation at the retreat,
Right.
that I instantaneously was like, oh, like it takes up one person or maybe a couple of people to say, listen, your voice isn't, you shouldn't sing.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you lose your voice. Yeah. And to feel that connection again, and to be like, to start singing is just wonderful.
Oh my God. And it's something that everyone has in them. Like my friend says this beautiful quote, which is like, if you've got a voice, you can sing. If you've got feet, you can dance.
Yeah.
Like, we're literally, as humans, like we're part of, like, with our ancestors, and in the olden days, like part of the carrying the wisdom of the ancestors was sharing stories, sharing songs, sharing like traditional dances. And it's that joy, say the dopamine that comes. Like, I had this on this retreat on the weekend. I was like, everyone was thanking me for obviously cooking for everyone, and I was like, oh, like saying like that was their medicine. But for me, it was sitting with all the women and singing. I was like, oh, this is my medicine. Like, nothing brings me more joy than like sitting in a group of people and singing together, or around the fire, singing around the fire. And we learned a Celtic song, which I've been singing. I know this like ancient Celtic song now. That, like, again, just carrying that through and forward, it was so beautiful of Abby, this musician Abby, to do for us, and the importance of that, honoring that. And we've just lost our way, it feels like, in modern day. Like, I don't know, I really feel like, everyone has such a thing around the voice. And because I've been on that journey of like loving singing, but then the blockage happening, and then really feeling like I can't express myself, to then like activating that throat chakra, I'm like, wow, like that's been such a big part of like my journey. And also then having the confidence of singing and being like, this isn't for anyone else. In fact, I'm finding my edge with it as well, being like, I'm gonna just share this thing of me singing, and watching it back and being like, I don't even think I sound good. But putting it there to prove to myself, I don't care what people think. Let people judge me. Let people judge me. I'm expressing myself, and that's all that matters.
I think that's great. I started like doing like some videos because I wasn't entirely sure I liked my voice, and just and gaining that confidence around it, and just if you're being your authentic self, then judgment just you don't care. And but was that the ancient Celtic song that we learned at Rising Tide? Yeah, the genocide, and it was an ancient Celtic song to the mountains. Yeah, it was beautiful.
And the fact that we were there with the mountains and then singing it, it was just wow.
Yeah, because I really felt that like unlock as well, because the next time we went back for your Rise and Shine at Chariclo, and Pete was singing songs, and you and Sarah were singing, and I was like asking for songs, and then I was belting my wee heart. I was like, and I came back and I was like, I think I sound fantastic. So, but it was just that absolute moment of just connecting through just that love of singing, but not caring what people
not caring, but everyone just coming from such a non-judgmental space. And that's what's really, really special about these things, because I've also found myself just developing in my confidence because everyone's been so loving and accepting, right? So we've all got it in us to sing. And I've also noticed how my voice, as I've tapped into more of my heart space and my authenticity, I'm noticing my voice even changing. Like my singing sounds different to how it did, and it's like just that self-trust. So I'm like, we've all got it in us, guys. We've just got to do it.
Oh, I like that. Like this has been a very nourishing conversation for me as well. And this is what I really enjoy about speaking to inspiring women and just listening to your stories, and then it's just it nourishes my soul. So thank you so much. Last thing we need to touch upon is your socials.
Yeah.
So Instagram for your poetry, and also for Moonji. And if you would like to share them, and then we can sign off.
Brilliant. Yeah. So my Instagram is, so for Moonji is at We Are Moonji. So WEARE, and then Moonji, MOONJI. And then if you wanna see me pour my heart out, do all my vulnerable shares on my poetry page, it's Heartflow by Abby. So Heartflow by Abby, and it's all about creativity and spiritual bits, and I love these things.
So thank you so much for sharing today, and thank you so much for listening. And if this podcast resonates with you, please like and subscribe and share. Thank you.
Thank you.